Across the Aisle segment tonight. Tomorrow is the day nobody is looking forward to, except perhaps liberal bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Tax Day. No one wants to pay taxes to a federal government that grows like a virus. And every year, a greater percentage of our tax dollars are spent on wasteful government programs. Even so, liberals in government, instead of cutting back on this wasteful spending out of respect to the taxpayers who work hard to earn this money, liberals in Washington actually want us to pay more of our money in taxes to the government. With me now, history professor and author of Obama's America, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Good to see you again, Liz.
All right, Ian, Senator James Lankford released it's sort of a tax accountability form. He calls it federal fumbles, ways the government wastes our tax money. In 2017, which of course, that's the taxes that we're paying tomorrow for 2017, $476.3 billion, that's billion with a B, in wasteful spending. Why don't Democrats care about that more?
Well, that's what Senator Lankford and his many staff members who drew up this report say is wasteful spending. I, by myself, in a couple of hours, couldn't, go in and have the knowledge to refute all of the things that he said, but I was able to find something interesting from the National Science Foundation. They were, that's the organization that runs grants and funds research, and they were targeted by Senator Lankford with a number of wasteful spending items. And here's what they broke down: a number of the items that he said were wasteful and explained, in fact, why they're not wasteful, while they're useful. And I'll just give you one example. There was a study that they funded that looks at a species that has a unique replication process, and what that study will do for the people of the United States is that it will, quote, help scientists understand the rate and direction of genetic changes in new environments and the consequences of those changes for the organisms. Now, that sounds pretty useful to me, and it's not something that's going to be funded by the private sector because nobody's going to make a buck on it. But it might, someday produce who knows what's going to do, who knows what kind of benefits. So if that's the kind of thing that Senator Lankford thinks is wasteful, I think we can throw his report into the wastebasket because it doesn't seem to be relevant or accurate.
The government spent $30,000 of our tax money on to produce a play called Doggy Hamlet. $30,000. The government spent over $100,000 to study whether aerobics or resistance exercise helped senior citizens lose weight quicker. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to find out what type of woman men who get on online dating apps prefer. They found, surprise, surprise, that it was younger and thinner ones. I mean, those are ridiculous. At the same time as these things are happening, which I know we both agree those are ridiculous, at the same time, Democrats actually want us to be paying more in taxes, Ian. That makes no sense to us as taxpayers.
Well, then why is the budget that was just passed by a Republican Congress with Republican majorities in the House and Senate, signed into law by the President Trump, a Republican, why did that budget come in with a base level for 2019 non-defense, non-discretionary spending at a level higher than requested by Barack Obama in his last budget? So it doesn't sound to me like it's liberals that are producing this wasteful spending. It sounds like it's Republicans, and Republicans don't want to talk about the specifics of the big picture of the kinds of budgets they're producing because they don't want to run on those issues. They want to talk about, oh, $20,000 for this, and aren't taxes awful, and liberal bureaucrats, and ha, ha, ha. But look at what Republicans are actually doing when they're in power. They're the ones who are spending on these wasteful things. Liberals don't have the majority in the House or Senate to pass any kind of budget. So if you are upset about those things, you should call your Republican congressman or your Republican senator or your Republican president.
You are 100% correct. I don't disagree with a single word that you said. The Republican budget that would just pass, I will answer your question. Why did it have that much spending in it? Because it sucked. Republicans campaigned on being more financially responsible than Democrats. They got to Washington, D.C., they morphed into swamp creatures, and they wasted our money. What you just said could be a campaign ad, could be a please call your Republican senator, your Republican congressman, and tell them what a terrible job they're doing. I agree with you 100%. That being said, Democrats are still telling us that they want to increase our taxes more. They want to repeal the Trump tax cuts, the corporate tax rate, they want to go up. They want the tax brackets for the highest earning individuals in our country to go up. And I guess I wanted to know why. Why do they want more of our money when Republicans and Democrats in Congress clearly are irresponsible with our hard-earned money, the part they pull from our paycheck every week? Why should we give them more?
So that's a great question, and I'm glad we agreed on the first part. We might not agree on the second part, but that's okay. So why? Why? Well, one reason they might want more is because the deficit is exploding. The Trump billionaire tax cut has added, just in the current fiscal year alone, almost $250 billion to the deficit. So we're borrowing from our kids and grandkids to give tax cuts today, mostly to rich people, right? So Republicans want to take your grandkids' money and give it to the Koch brothers and give it to hedge fund managers.
Right.
And people
Let me pause you right here for 1 second.
I don't think that's such a great idea.
Let me pause you right here. I agree with that. It's immoral. I agree. Again, we agree. It's immoral to put all this debt on the backs of our kids and grandkids. So why aren't Democrats supporting cutting our budget and cutting spendful and cutting spending that is wasteful, cutting these programs that are pork, cutting everything excess that we possibly can so that we're not passing this enormous debt onto future generations?
And that's a great question. One of the things that Democrats are supporting is avoiding some of that debt and getting the deficit down by raising taxes back to where they were on the wealthiest. But that's one piece.
But you don't
there
tax
is wasteful
yourself into
spending in government.
prosperity.
Well, but you can tax yourself out of deficits.
When?
And you
When
don't
has that ever
cut
happened?
yourself into prosperity either. Bill Clinton presided over a surplus after raising taxes. Remember Bill Clinton in a Democratic Congress without a single Republican vote?
Because of
in the
Bill
House or
Clinton's
Senate,
policies is part of the reason that we had the terrible financial issues that we had under President Bush was because of some of the things that Bill Clinton did. That's not exactly an advertisement for doing again what he did.
They were because of the things that were done by President Bush and by a Republican Congress after 1994, some of which were signed into law by Bill Clinton, who was too centrist for my taste, not liberal enough, not tough enough on the financial industry, the kinds of things that would have prevented that crisis. So we can go around. But let's not forget, the Clinton surpluses happened after the 93-94 budget, which Republicans said would lead to the worst recession since the Great Depression. Instead, it led to the boom of the 90s, and it led to a surplus at the end of the 90s.
No,
Bush
Ronald Reagan's policies led to the boom of the 90s. That was not the fault of Bill Clinton. That is ridiculous. Ian, let me tell you what conservatives think. Conservatives think when Democrats say we want to tax the wealthy, we want to raise the corporate tax rate, we want a tax code that is, quote, fair. We interpret that as you saying we want to redistribute the wealth. We want to pass this around. We want socialism. And that is the most inherently unfair thing, to punish people who are successful, to punish people who are making more money just because they're making money. And on top of that, it's adding insult to injury when the government actually wastes that money. They use it for stupid things. They use it for pet projects. They abuse it by spending it on themselves. I mean, I don't understand why Democrats don't come out and say, yeah, sometimes government wastes a lot of our money. And before we take more of your money, more money from your wallet, more money from your paycheck every week, we should cut back on every wasteful drop there is.
Well, let's be clear. Bill Clinton undid Reagan's policies, at least in good degree, by raising taxes on the wealthiest Americans, and he also cut spending, which didn't happen under the Reagan years. But that's one thing. But let's talk about some of the spending. You know, I'm sure, that our military, we spend more than the next 8 countries combined in terms of military spending, and many of those countries are our friends. Do we really need to spend more than the next 8 countries combined, some of which are our friends? Could there not be some cuts found in that area?
Yes, there could. There's wasteful spending that happens in the military, too. There's wasteful spending that happens in the military, but we only have a minute left. I'd love you to answer my question, if you would have a mind to. Democrats say they want a fair tax cut, fair tax code, meaning high taxes on the wealthy, high taxes on corporations. Do you actually believe that that is fair? Do you believe that is fair to the people that work hard to make a lot of money? And do you feel that that actually incentivizes people to build businesses and prosper and climb up the ladder?
Well, the Democratic plan for taxes makes sure that wages are not taxed at a higher rate than capital gains, because people who actually work hard for a living shouldn't have their taxes taxed at a higher rate than people who are sitting back watching, the hedge fund money roll in. So that's an important thing. You can raise taxes to make it equitable between what's called earned income and what we call unearned income. I think that's a pretty good plan, and it's one that rewards hard work, effort, and people who go to work every day and put in their 8 or 10 or 12 hours.
People who've done well for themselves and invested their income. Yeah, like I said, I think it's pretty clear. Democrats won't say that that's not fair, because it's not fair. It's not fair to people who have done well, worked hard, and have climbed up the economic ladder. Democrats want to take their money and give it to someone else. And to me, that's fundamentally, it's not just unfair, it's also an immoral thing to do. Ian, I do appreciate you coming on the show to debate. It's always good to talk to you.